Anime Central in Chicago, Illinois has been one of the biggest and most influential anime conventions in the US for many years now. I first attended acen in 2012. It was actually the second con I ever attended. I went pretty much every year throughout 2017. Now, in 2023, I was ecstatic to see how it had changed in the last 6 years, if at all. This is the official Convention Reviews Anime Central 2023 review. Anime Central has called the Hyatt and Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois, home for many years, and for good reason. For us at least, this is still one of the most iconic locations an anime convention can be held. But beyond just our pure nostalgia, practically speaking, this location has numerous advantages. There are multiple hotels surrounding the convention center, all in walking distance, as well as a mall in walking distance, meaning if you don't want to pay the obscene prices for convention food, you can easily find something at the mall, or just order it straight to your hotel. On top of that, somehow, Anime Central is still not needing to fully utilize all the space the convention center has to offer. Even though this is one of the largest conventions in the country, it somehow still has room to grow within its current space. acen is always held around May as well, meaning outside space is also usually able to be utilized for things like meetups and line spillover for main events. One of the biggest aspects of Anime Central is its dealer's room and artist alley. It still sits atop every other con I've visited as being the biggest and most diverse dealer's room when it comes to the sheer size and type of merchandise offered. Thankfully, the artist alley doesn't slack either, itself being bigger than the dealer's room for most conventions I've visited. One aspect of Anime Central we felt was somewhat lacking for its size in comparison to other conventions in the past was its game room, but I'm very happy to report that this is no longer an issue at all. In fact, we felt this may have easily been the biggest and best game room we've ever seen. Other than the fact that aesthetically the space was a little ugly, but who cares when they have literally everything I've ever seen in a game room plus significantly more. I did want to give a quick shout out to acen's manga library as a perfect place to get off your feet, take a little break from all the action, and maybe try out some new manga while doing it. When it comes to panels, it's a bit hard for me to judge, just due to the sheer amount of them. I will say personally that we didn't see as many panels that interested us this year, but this is all just personal taste. With the sheer amount of things to see and do at acen, I'm sure if you tried, you could easily find some events worth spending your time at. On top of everything else I mentioned so far, I want to be sure to point out that there was a lot happening at the con that we also just straight up missed or didn't see due to the sheer size of the convention. I firmly believe if you are an anime, manga, gaming, K-pop, superhero, or any other type of nerd culture fan of any kind, you will easily find more than enough to keep you entertained for the entirety of the convention. The size of Anime Central is large. The location gets a 10 out of 10. As mentioned, the location for Anime Central is perfect. I straight up can't imagine it taking place anywhere else. Organization gets a 10 out of 10. This surprised me, actually. In the past, I felt like acen had some problems in this area, which seems normal for a big con with so many moving parts. But this year, things just felt great. Of course, there were still lines. For a con this huge, that's unavoidable. But for the things we did, at least, everything started on time and ran very efficiently. Also, shout out to them sending badges out in the mail this year. Not sure how long they've been doing that, since this was my first time back in 6 years, but man, it helped things really feel so much smoother upon arrival. The dealer's room gets a 10 out of 10, of course. How could it be anything else? acen has the best dealer's room in the Midwest and probably one of the best in the country, hands down. The game room gets a 10 out of 10. I don't think I've ever given them a 10 in this category before, but I'm super excited to finally be able to. The game room this year actually went above and beyond any expectations I had for it. Not to mention, there's also an entire tabletop section of the con that I hadn't mentioned. If you like gaming of pretty much any kind, there's something here for you at Anime Central. Guests get a 10 out of 10. To be honest, acen didn't have any guests that I was personally over the moon about, but that's just a matter of personal preference. It's very hard for me to not give them a perfect score here just based on the sheer number and variety of guests. Even though I wasn't totally blown away by anyone, doesn't mean you weren't. If you're someone who goes to cons to see big name guests in nerd culture industries, the chance of there being someone you'd want to see at acen is very high. Main Events gets a 10 out of 10. From concerts to the masquerade and everything in between, acen has so many high-profile main events. The only real issue with them is getting in before the room fills up, but this is a problem with any big con. I don't take points away for it because, as far as I can tell, they've used the biggest rooms they had access to for the main events panels. Of course, a lot of main events will be better if you're into the guests the con brought that year, but there's no denying that they have some of the best main events of any anime convention. Staff gets a 10 out of 10. This was a hard one to judge as I didn't interact with too many staff members, or at least I can't seem to remember those interactions, which to me is a very good thing. The problem with staff at cons is that sometimes some will get a bit of a power trip and overstep their job at the con. At Anime Central 2023, every staff member I encountered seemed to know exactly what they were supposed to be doing and did it perfectly. I did have a little issue with some of the Hyatt staff at one point. They just kind of came off super rude, but this is the hotel staff, not people working for the con. The rave gets a 10 out of 10. Of course, music preference differs from person to person, but you cannot deny that acen pulled some of the biggest and best DJs they could for an anime convention rave. You could be forgiven for thinking you stepped out of a convention and into an actual concert at times. The lighting was phenomenal, the camera work was perfect, the way things ran both nights had a feel of professionalism you don't often see at anime convention raves. I have no problem saying Anime Central, without a doubt, hosts the premier anime convention rave experience. Some people won't agree, but at the end of the day, I feel confident calling Anime Central still one of the best cons you can put your time and money into. Of course, everyone will have their own experience, but if you like cons of this size, you absolutely can't go wrong here. Acen has proven once again why they've been a mainstay in the industry for so long, and I firmly believe they will only continue to grow from here for many years to come. Without a doubt, I give Anime Central 2023 a 10 out of 10, a perfect score, as well as the Convention Review's seal of approval. Do yourself a favor, go ahead and add Anime Central 2024 to your calendar for next year.